incredible. That works.
That works. That works. This is the second episode. We're still filling everything out and making sure, like, how do we get into this? Like, how do we start it all?
I mean, heck, we started this just like we shoot the shit before we like start the episode, and like we're talking not indie games, like talking all this mainstream stuff that we play, and it's like,
yeah. Well,
I mean,
we can go ahead and introduce ourselves for those who are just now jumping in. I'm Xander Skullion from YouTube, Xander Skullion, and who are you? Who are you, fine sir?
well, I am Jeff Wittenhagen, author, game publisher, and now running the Indie Gaming Gems YouTube channel. Which
I'm excited. I mean, I'm very excited about this. And I'm not just saying that. Like, this is a really cool project, and I'm glad that we're going to dive into it and let the listeners know about it. Because if you're on the fence and you're just like, I don't know what kind of games I want to play, well, we got you covered.
That's me.
Yeah, he's got you covered for sure.
No, like I don't know what I want to play, so I didn't figure it out. No, it's an interesting thing, and kind of like where like you and I both like indie, but it kind of where this stemmed was, doing what I do for books. I'm like, I want to create something cool, and it goes hand in hand with everything I already do. And so essentially the Indie Gaming Gems channel, every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there'll be a new episode of 10 indie games you need to play. And it's just going to go every week. There'll be a new episode. It's about, 10 to 15 minutes will be the length of each episode. And, it'll grow. The algorithm is going to pick it up because it's new and all those shenanigans, which is fine. But I'm a publisher, so I'm putting a lot of production into it. But in reality, I'm just making sure it looks nice and there's good footage and all that. Let's be real here. But including stuff like this podcast, it can all make it onto content forever, which is why I'm very, being a preservationist, being a collector, being a publisher, doing all that stuff, I'm heavy into evergreen content. And in order to make a YouTube channel evergreen, it's to not worry about the subs, not worry about the views, but create something that is memorable, that is episodic, and I can preserve it on a physical medium because I know how to do that stuff. So that's the idea with it, is that there'll be a certain amount that'll go into a season. And this all stemmed because I had been working on for like 2-3 years researching for an Indie Gaming Gems book. So it's all going hand in hand, everyone, and it'll be really, really cool as things unveil. And I'll piecemeal little stuff here in episodes. Just like now, it's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, just like you're doing here right now for this podcast. And share with your friends. I'm already getting cool comments and stuff on episodes. It's really rad, and community recommendations will be taken into consideration for future episodes, as well as the book, as well as this podcast. So,
yeah. What's crazy about it is like there are so many games that you've mentioned just from us, like conversing and like starting the podcast. Like before we started podcast, like a week before we started podcast, I was like, there's some games coming out that I want to play, but I was kind of in the gaming rut. And then, like, when you start talking more and more about the podcast and you start talking about all these games, I was like, holy crap. Like, UFO 50? Like, dude, UFO 50, I know we talked about it in the last episode, and I'm going to try not to talk too much about it, but I do want to say it shifted my whole, like, games of 2024. Like,
yeah.
And I wouldn't have known about it, You
want to do a little math in public? You want to hear something crazy? Something that I heard about within the last week. So go ahead and pull up a calculator, because I don't have the ability to do one here. Pull up a little calculator. Let's talk indie games and how crazy that it is. We're only, with this podcast, with 10 games a week, all this stuff, we're only scratching the surface. So there is a rumor, and not really a rumor, it's kind of a fact. There's an average of 40 indie games released every day. 40. So use your calculator. 40 times 365.
Wow. That's over like 14,600 games.
So there's over 14,000 indie games released a year. And that's, all genres, all games, all qualities, whether it's a small demo, a big thing, a massive game. But there's 14,000. How many games were released for the original Nintendo physically? 760. You know what I mean? So 14,000. So even if I'm covering the top 10 games or 10 amazing games, and we cover a few here, and we highlight a few that are on the horizon, these are stuff that we personally think are rad. And that's the main thing that we'll always go over is like, this is all, personal feelings, our personal feel, something that looks really cool and outstanding. I'm trying to avoid looking at stuff that's easy to find. If like UFO 50 is honestly got a little bit of coverage, so it's almost a little too mainstream.
Yeah, it's on the cusp. It's like it's like a band that put out a really good first album and they're about to make their second album. Like they're not as underground. It's like Metallica Master of Puppets. That's where they're at. They're not quite the Black Album, but it's Master of Puppets season,
Exactly. I like to stick in the Puppets realm. It's a good one. We get a little and Justice, and then it's like really hitting its stride, and we're getting good. We're getting good. But we're not going to get to Black Album with some of these guys until you hit like a Balatro and it just explodes.
Yeah.
And as I go through like the YouTube channel or other things, like I will cover some major games. Like there'll be an episode where it'll be like Balatro, and you'll have the Shadow of the Ninja remake, and there'll be bigger things. But but like the stuff that I want to like really focus on is like those developers that are putting their heart and soul into something that we wouldn't even known about. Like there's crazy stuff. Even like in episode 2 that I had, there's a game that you can't even like look it up online because everything's in Japanese. But then there's like one thing that shows it, but it's like an amazing Metroidvania with almost 3D polygonal graphics, and it looks amazing. And it's like there's so many little gems out there. I mean, there's even a game that we're gonna talk about today that's like people should know about it, and they don't, and it's crazy. And then like you're gonna go and peel back this episode and go back a couple of years to an indie game that even had a physical release, and that physical release was kind of limited and kind of under the radar. And like some of those, like I'll cover some games too that went under the radar, but like those probably won't make it into the book because I want the book to be like the super obscure stuff. Like it won't have a physical, like it won't, like that's kind of me being a hipster about it. But on the other side, I mean, and we'll talk about during this episode, like what sparked our interests. But like I've been constantly dialing in my tastes, and it's a fun adventure with indie games, and there's never enough. That's the 14,000 games a year. There's never enough time or games.
Well, I think that's a good segue to lead into our Facebook group page and Discord that we have. Yeah. Like, let's go right into it.
Flawless. Yeah, like, so, in between episodes here, this will be before we even launch the podcast, we have a Facebook group called Indie Gaming Gems that people can go on and communicate. We've been adding people that we know that are in the community. Some guys are huge collectors, and some are already posting some amazing games that, one I actually was tracking. There was like 2 others. Then like they were on my wish list, but I have not played them yet. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So there are some, and we'll call them community recommendations. There are already some community recommendations. There's one that's like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, but with like retro characters that look like IPs. Like there's one that's called Mike, and instead of Mike Tyson, it's Tyke Mike.
Yeah.
And then I think it's like Logan Paul, but it's Pogan Law or it's something like hilarious, like, or Jake Paul Jake or something like that. But it's like hilarious. Like it's like you get to fight as a Mike Tyson's Punch Out style game. And that one was actually on my deck already, but I hadn't played it yet. But then there was like a Ninja Gaiden game that he posted. Like there's already
it's like a Macross like shooter, like a Macross style shooter. I was like, holy shit.
I hadn't heard of that one. That was brand new to me. And so the cool thing is that like this right now, the Facebook page, as people find everything, it will grow. But right now it's already cool. And so for me, we're already there. I'm already good. Like I'm already enjoying it. And then the Discord is just another way that people can communicate because it's, it's a forum. So Facebook posts, all that stuff will go away. You have to manually search for it. the forums, the classic old school Angel Fire pages, like all that stuff. That's what it reminds me of. So Discord, there's a channel for Hagen's Alley Books, and I already created, because Video Game Bullshit's down there. It's a podcast I do. I got my books on there, but I create a whole section for Indie Gaming Gems, including the Incredible podcast in there, so we can talk. People can talk about the episodes, what you like about it. They can make recommendations. There's a recommendations section for community recommendations, and it all feeds into one another because it's fun as hell.
Yeah. It's just finding fun games to play and talking about it. That's essentially what it is, and that's what I love about it. Because the community on Facebook. I mean, we haven't, at the time of launching this episode, like, we haven't had it up long, but I mean, there's already so many games, like, already. It's pretty cool.
It's insane. And the thing is that one thing I've learned is that everybody in the community has ideas and has good games that they want to talk about. They just love talking about video games. And so it's a perfect thing where people can share their favorite stuff, and then we'll get to enjoy more video games. And so we all win. And that's, like, it's super fucking cool, man. So talking about, the theme of this episode, so we don't get too far down the rabbit hole, because I will, is like, what sparked our interest in indie video games? Like, why did you get obsessed? Why did I get obsessed with this indie game style? Because I hadn't always done this, and this is what gets crazy, but it's been years now. And I have a sickness, and the only cure for that sickness is more indie games. No, it's a very interesting thing. Do you want to go first, though? And talk about...
because I was sitting there thinking about, like, how it all started. And I mean, it started with the 360. Like, some games, off the Xbox Arcade. Like, I remember playing Limbo. Limbo is, like, a big game now. And Braid. Some of those, like, games that would... Super Meat Boy. Those games...
Super Meat Boy. And Watching Your Thunder.
Yeah. But those games would... those games would become classics. But, I thought it was really cool at the time. I was like, man, I'm playing the Xbox 360, and I'm playing games that are made by, like, gamers. Like, people who made their own video games. Like, I thought the Xbox Arcade, that mindset was so cool. And the thing is that all the games were, like, always dirt cheap, too. Like, most of them were, like, 10, maybe it was a bigger one, like Limbo would be, like, 15, something like that. But it was fun. And it was just, it felt just a little different than, like, the mainstream that was going on at the time. That was just going through the motions of trends, where this was, like, made by gamers, and it also had a lot of that retro nostalgia that we didn't realize, or at least I didn't realize until I saw Mega Man 9, that I was missing. Because when I saw Mega Man 9, I was just like, oh my God, I forgot how cool this was. And this is, like, brand new, but it's old. And then you had people being like, well, I'm going to make some really cool new old style games. And not all of them are retro, but, they kind of had that, backbone to it. So, yeah, I think that's where it all started. It didn't get crazy, though, until the Switch. Like, when the Switch was like the dam broke, the levee broke, and I was, like, playing so many indies. But I can talk more about that a little bit later on. But what about you?
So mine, so kind of like yours, came in phases. I mean, I absolutely, because, I'm in the Army, in the military, and I move all the time. So, like, coming back from deployment is when the 360 era happened. And I had my 360 when I was down there. I was deployed playing, like, Halo 3 and big stuff. But when I came back, connected her to the internet, that's when I started to play the Super Meat Boys. And I just remember there were many a party weekend. We used to party every weekend in Miami, Florida. I'm stationed in Miami, Florida. Like, you can even complain about.
Yeah.
But I remember unlocking the kit, which was, I want to be the guy. You can do a level to unlock, and you have to, like, do pixel perfect jumping. I just remember playing that over and over. And my buddy Rich is the one who actually beat it. I couldn't do it. And that was my first, like, major taste. And around this same time is when the other things started, which was the NES homebrew community started to build steam. Before, and this was old Nintendo Age forums. There was basically a community of people who were getting a bunch of prototypes, and a bunch of original releases of unreleased games, and they were putting out cartridges. And at the same time, this guy Membler, his name's Joe, started reverse engineering the NES and figuring out easy ways to create programs to program for the NES and not just do some graphical hacks. And so that stuff started to get easier and easier, and people started to make stuff like Battle Kid Fortress Apparel, which was also based off of I Want to Be the Guy. And that game blew me away when I got to play that on the NES on a real cartridge. And that's what really showed me, because there were games before that, but that's what showed me, okay, there's stuff that people can release, even on retro consoles, that rival old school games from that era.
Makes me think of the Dreamcast homebrew scene like that. I was like, wait, they're still making Dreamcast games? They're like, yeah, these folks that just know what they're doing. Like, I think that's the thing, because I'm not a developer by any stretch of the imagination. So it's still kind of magical to me. You know, I still feel like, you know, it's almost like when you think of like, you know, cartoonists, and you think of them, you know, being at the table and the lights on them and they're just drawing art and stuff like that. It's like, that's what I think about developers. I know it's more to like the code or whatever, but yeah, it was like these folks are like creating magic on stuff that we grew up with, like especially the Dreamcast. I'm like, that Gunlord, oh my God.
Back in the day, though, the NES community, they were like programming for sure. Nowadays, though, even Gunlord, stuff like that, it's more OOP, object-oriented programming, where they're taking stuff and manipulating it. There's a program called Pixel Game Maker on Steam and on Windows, and you can download that and actually design your own game with the GUI and make different stuff within the construct of that program. And you can make retro games. Like a lot of games that are in Steam have been made with a backend similar to that. And sitting with Unity is that there's new programs within Unity that help you program and make graphics and make even polygon models and things. So it's not crazy voodoo magic, but it is crazy voodoo magic, because to make it good requires talent. Yeah. Just like playing music. I can go strum on a guitar, but to make an album, to make music requires talent. And a lot of these, like it's honing in and finding the cool stuff. And that's kind of how I started with this madness. But you had mentioned Nintendo Switch. Well, that's when my shit got crazy. It went nuts, dude. And, you know, there's a little company that came out before the Switch called Limited Run Games and started to put indie games on the Vita and on the PlayStation. And they started to release games. And I started to get some games on it. I didn't get the Vita. I got some of their PlayStation releases because I had a Vita, but I think I only owned one game on it. Like I just never played it for some reason. I don't know if it was just the era or whatever. But when the Switch came out, that's when I got insane. And you know, then it goes into 2020 when I had the opportunity from Nintendo to be a third-party publisher and get to myself preserve in my own crazy way physical games. And I went for crazy packaging.
Yeah.
Insanity.
See, I have a funny limited run story for you, and I probably have never mentioned this before on a podcast or anything like that. But shout out to Devin, if you're listening, Devin. Devin, he's played music with me. He's a drummer, and Devin's from Apex, North Carolina, and he moved here in my town. He ended up moving back to Apex. When he moved back to Apex, he started, jamming with other musicians, and he was playing drums with this one guy in the band, and one of the guys in the band, his name was Doug, okay? And he was like, yeah, and we're like, Devin would come back to town, we would hang out and have breakfast or whatever, and he was telling me about his friend Doug, and he was like, yeah, he's like, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make, video games, like they're digital into physical, and he handed me a copy of Abe's Odyssey on the PlayStation 4, and this was an early like release, but that was limited run. That was like one of the guys, I believe, that was like running the show at the time. Yeah. Like, yeah, dude, I'm like, holy, it's crap.
I got crazy stories with limited run after I created premium edition games. But it was wild. Like because my thing is that limited run could only, we already mentioned the numbers, 14,000 games a year. Limited run can only publish so many games a year, even though they probably do a release all the damn time now. They can only do so many games. So there are tons of opportunities for companies to come out there. But my thing is that I wanted to focus, because I've been doing books in a really crazy high quality way. Right over here. High quality way for years now. And I'm like, I'm going to apply that to video games and take what a developer makes and make it the coolest thing ever. It's basically, graphic design combined with distribution, massive distribution.
And that's the tangibleness. That's what I like about it. Because you're not just getting, because listen, I love when an indie game gets a physical release. I'm like, fuck yeah. But I like it even better when I'm getting it in an instruction manual, a keychain, a reversible cover, something that is not just a, physical purchase for me, for my shelf and for me as a collector, but also a celebration, an archival celebration of this game that was released. It's a celebration, because you open it up and you really admire the hard work that went into this game.
And like Premium's doing stuff that no other company's doing, which is like, and it's my brainchild of, we're doing two different things uniquely, because we're doing the thing where we put a manual in every single game. We put every game case for Switch inside of an NES looking sleeve, which goes inside of a slip case. So it's almost like our regular release is like a box. But we do two other things. Number one, inside of our cases is a trading card, not just a trading card, but it's a developer's challenge card. So on the back is the developer's challenge. If you go beat the developer's challenge, I mail you, like I do it by hand, mail you a patch for free, Activision style.
That's so cool. That is, okay. That's awesome.
Nobody is doing that. And that is like underground. Like you have to open the game, and a lot of Switch collectors don't open their games. So
yeah,
when we were pushing it hard, we were absolutely getting a lot of submissions. But now that we're not pushing it as much, there's only a few people that are really hunting these patches, which is crazy.
I love it. I love that kind of stuff.
But that's one thing that they're doing. But the other thing is that, we do a retro edition where we put the soundtrack in there. It looks like a Super Nintendo box or an NES box for every release. But certain games I'll do a deluxe of where there's a Neo Geo case with it. Alongside of it, the size of the Neo Geo case, I'm doing hardcover strategy guides. But they look like Nintendo Power. And so Robot Named Fight was the first one, and it has like a red background, like Nintendo Power looking aesthetics, and then it goes through, and it's hundreds of pages.
Such a good game, by the way.
But I'm doing a hardcover, really good quality foil on it, and like bookmark, like everything that I do with books, I'm doing for these guides. So no other company is doing it to that level. Like people have done guides, people have done stuff, but it's not quite that level. And so that's kind of the preface, the preamble to how I got crazy with indie games. So, obviously, when you're starting a new company, you're reaching out, and then after the first year or so, developers start to reach out to us. But I think I mentioned in episode 1, I am OCD. To a fine, crazy. I have to do all of the things. That's why I create books called The Complete Things. And so as soon as I got the green light from Nintendo, I started creating lists of games I thought would be cool to sign or potentially play. And then the team looks at it and we potentially sign. And I started doing this by adding the games and doing wish lists, and then adding them and buying them and adding them to my Steam Deck. About 6 months later, I had 600 games in my Steam Deck library that are all indie style games that I thought looked cool as hell.
That's a whole console generation. That's like a whole console generation.
And this was in 6 months, dude. Because I had to go backward. I had to go backward to everything, because I'm OCD, everything that was released before 2020. And so I started going backward, looking at every indie game that looked cool. I added it to the list, and I started going down. And then I started doing it by genre. I did it by budget and not budget. And and it's all sorted on my deck right now. And so eventually I'm like, all right, so there's more games than we could even sift through for premium. You can't test them all. And so I was like, I'm going to create a book. And this was like about 4 years ago. I'm going to create a book on indie gaming gems. And, it's evolved to what we're doing. But that's how I got into indie, because I started playing all these games and they're all freaking amazing.
Let me ask you real quick. Like, so you said you were doing this for 4 years. Has there been a game yet? I'm pretty sure there's been plenty, but is there a game that off the top of your head that was in like the early drafts of this that turned out to be like crazy successful, like crazy, like everyone, like my nephew's playing it right now, like
Because like there's games like that I found that didn't have a physical, like A Robot Named Fight, which I got an art piece right here for. That's Infinite Super Metroid, and that game, like I was hunting and I was like, oh, this game isn't signed. I talked to the developers, like, hell yeah, I'll sign with you. I would say Hades.
Oh yeah,
Hades,
which is funny.
That's
what he was playing earlier today. He was playing some Hades.
There's stuff like Hades that pops up, Bellatro, that went millions of downloads. Vampire Survivors. Like that's a game that I had in the list. And like
that game's out of nowhere, dude. Vampire Survivors, like, and I remember seeing it at first, because it's one of those games that when you look at it, you're like, I don't know. You got to play it. Because yeah, and my guitarist, he was playing it. He's like, you got to get this. And, I still don't really game that much on Steam, but I was like, I got to get this. It's on Steam. Okay, I'll get it. And I'm like, this is crack. This is so freaking good. Like, oh yeah.
And so like a few of those like popped out of nowhere and like sucked my life in. There's a game we're going to talk about later, one of the new games for discussion that is in that realm that I feel like is on that cusp. Because the thing is like I'll reach out and like if it's a really, really cool game, like there's a game that we're announcing in Premium's Fall Direct. At the time of this recording, it hasn't launched yet, but by the time we launch this episode in May, that's a major game with a major IP, and it's pretty cool. But that one, I reached out and I was like, hey, I supported this game. I think it's dope. I don't see a limited run games release for it. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll go with you. We know about you. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
Like we have a reputation. Now, let's be very clear though. I don't run or own Preview Edition games anymore. Mm-hmm. As I am in the Army, the Army decided to promote me, which added 5 more years to my contract before I could retire. So I'll be at like 25 years before I could retire. But like 20 already, man. So I had to make the choice to allow Premium to grow, to sell it to my business partner and let him run the company. I'm still doing graphic design and all the fun stuff, but I don't run or operate the company. So like there is that, but I still, like, even this week I had 3 games come in that were I get all the proofs. So when I make stuff, like when we're doing an order, and these games are Super Dungeon Maker. If you have heard of that one, that one is basically Legend of Zelda Maker. Super dope. And we were waiting on that one for about a year because Nintendo found errors in it, so we were unable to release it for a year because they had to fix some stuff that with the physical Switch caused an error that didn't on digitals. So they had to fix that before we could put it on a physical cartridge. There is Anichard, which is like Legend of Zelda, and Lonesome Village, which is almost like an Animal Crossing game. And all 3 of those games, I just got in all of the physical packaging that I designed, which includes slipcases, sleeves, the manuals, the cards, the retro boxes. If we did like little guides. One guy on my team, Tristan, he designed like a cookbook for Anichard because you actually make like different kind of cook like different stuff in the game. And he made like a funny cookbook for it.
That's cool.
And so I got all the physical proofing that I check and I meticulously look through everything to make sure it looks cool, and that it meets all the intentions. It's kind of like being the chief creative officer. I also have to, make sure everything looks good.
Indeed.
And that's like awesome. Cartridges weren't in there. It's not the game.
Yeah.
Because it's all the other stuff. But so I don't own it. But like that stuff, I'm working on stuff all the time. But yeah, that's how I got interested in video games was that route. So I mean, I'm deep down the rabbit hole. I play indie games all the time in rotation. I actually don't really play modern games. Like this last week or two, it's been weird because I've been playing the Zelda and been playing Astrobot and other stuff, but I don't normally I'm playing indie stuff. Awesome. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it might be time though for a transition. I think we should talk about your first newest game over here. Which I think we're talking about the one that had the physical release from a few years back. You're like, we need to talk about this game.
Yes, Dicey Dungeons. Dicey Dungeons is, it's one of those games I enjoy so much. I own it on Steam and Switch, and I'm probably going to be buying the physical as well because I didn't know it had a physical until you mentioned it. I'm like, oh man, you
had talked about it. I'm like, dude, I think like years ago, this thing had a physical release. It was from Super Rare Games, and I have a copy. Yeah. I haven't opened it because I didn't have time because I'm playing everything else under the sun for premium. But like, yeah, that game looked so freaking cool.
Yeah, the art style is really interesting. It's almost like it's pretty much like a roguelike turn-based RPG based around dice. So you have like this board game that you start out at, and each piece that you roll, you got to walk, and it's got, little obstacles and stuff like that. And you go to fight, and it's just like, gives you 4 different choices, like a turn-based RPG, and you have to roll the dice. Some moves need more dice than others, and it's one of those games that, like, you start playing it, and your back starts falling asleep. Because you've been sitting too long. You know what I'm saying? Like, your legs start falling asleep. You're like, oh, man, I got to get up. I've been playing this for a while. But it's not normally a game I would play. It's not a game that I would be, like, sniffing out. But it was a game that was recommended from my guitarist, Mikey. He mentioned it to me. And he's like, oh, yeah, play it. And, I was like, I'll give it a try. It was a couple bucks. And that's something else I really like about indie, too, is, like, it's just a couple bucks. It's not like, a AAA. The games now are like $70 plus. I mean, that's so expensive. That's such a gamble where, if I buy, when we start talking about some games, I bought a game that we're going to talk about that I bought for $5. Didn't like it, but it was only $5.
That's probably what I love the most about indie games is that, like, a lot of them, the investment isn't big. And then when you find ones that you like your Dicey Dungeons, okay, you got it for a couple bucks. Now you enjoy it. There is a physical, so now you can go and support the thing that you love. The only thing is that it's out of print likely, so it might cost you a couple extra dollars. It might cost you $70 at this point, instead of 40. So you mentioned this is a roguelike dice game. Have you played Balatro? Because I mentioned it earlier. If you haven't played Balatro, it is literally poker. And I'm not a poker player. But then you add these jokers that do crazy shit, and you have to like manipulate them, and you just get these points that these points that just skyrocket and go insane. And I mean, I literally played some yesterday. I'm like, I'm gonna play some Balatro again, and I played for like 4 hours. I'm like, son of a bitch. And it's just, I just went through, and I actually, it took me weeks and weeks of playing to where I could actually beat the first, like, there's a first section, because every 3 there's a boss, and the bosses have a thing like, okay, now hearts aren't gonna work to get points, or now the blind's gonna be huge, or this time when you do new ones it'll be face down and you won't see the cards when they hit. Like, it's this asshole game stuff, and it's awesome. But I hadn't beaten it because you get through like 6 or 8 of them antes, then you can beat the game. I hadn't done that for like, it took me like a month or longer to do it one time. Yesterday I did it 3 times. In a few hours playing through, and different decks have different advantages. But once you actually do that, you unlock challenge modes. Now there's freaking challenges in this game. Like, if that's what Dicey Dungeons to me sounds like, it's like, okay, that's Balatro, but dice, and then there's an RPG in it, or like, what's the hook there?
Yeah, because you got like different classes that you unlock. So it's almost like you got your thief, you have, a bard, you have your, just different classes that have their own perks and whatnot.
Okay.
So like, it's if you get enough in your first run, you get enough points, you unlock a new class. And I remember I really liked the thief because, the thief, sometimes he could like attack, but while he attacks, he could like steal points or something like that. Stuff's true. Yeah, I like it. It's like good stuff. It's like every
that's definitely more RPG with the story, which also sounds super interesting because Balatro is definitely just cards. There's no story to it, but it's just as addicting though, to where I just don't get it.
Yeah, because you have like it's every board has like this own board game aesthetic to it, and there's like this woman who hosts it. It's just like, oh, ha, ha, it's the game of death or something like that. So, like, you walk, it's almost like Mario Party in the way that you're just walking on the dots and boom, there's a fight. You got to roll your dice and get different kinds of dice. I mean, it's pretty cool. I was like, this is a lot of fun. Like I said, normally I wouldn't bat an eye at it, but I guess
can we get a sound bite of you going, oh. Gonna get you doing that over in like the beginning of the intro. You are the master now. Dude, yeah, so I mean Dicey Dungeons, super freaking good game, it sounds like to me. I'm gonna have to finally play it because like there was a point, and as I said, like I was like the Switch got crazy for me. This is while I was still establishing, I think, premiums when like this game came out, Dicey Dungeons, but like I was buying anything for Switch when it first was released was like 2017-ish is when Switch came out. I was buying anything that I thought looked cool, which is problematic because it became almost everything. And there's, inherently there's going to be some shovelware like Wii or Wii U where there's going to be some games that I'm not necessarily interested in, but like it turned into like every generation from all the way from Pong, Atari, all the way to modern, there are games like for every genre, every generation, everything. And like there's so many games. And like I think Dicey Dungeons was like near the end of that era of like when I created premium, things got a little crazy. Like I had to like shift. And I moved to playing more Steam and more digitally as well because I was looking for any stuff that I could potentially support physically, but also there's just too many.
Yeah. Yeah, and plus, I mean, it saves. Let's be honest, it kind of saves you money too, because I mean, there's some Switch games like indie Switch games that are like just a little bit more than they are on Steam. It's like I'll just get on Steam and you get Steam sales. I mean, I really wish that Nintendo did more eShop like promos and deals and stuff like that. They don't really do that too much. I always check the great deals. Sometimes I'll find like I always try to find that game that's like $5 or $3 that is questionable and turns out to be a really fun game. I love finding those, and the Switch has plenty of those.
That's this podcast.
Yeah,
we're you and I we're both questionable, but maybe you'll find something cool.
Yeah,
it's
like I'll see some game and it's like okay, it looks kind of like a Mega Man sort of game, and it's called like I'm just making up something like Flaming Elbow Grease Cannon, and I'm like, that sounds crazy. I'll try it out, and it'll be like amazing, and no one will know about it. It's like I gotta tell everyone.
It's called like 20XX is what it's called.
Yeah,
there is one called that. That is a Mega Man inspired game.
Oh yeah, that's a good game. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, and then now there's 30XX, which is the sequel, which is also amazing. So what I've been doing, and I did this with the Switch first, was and I don't do it anymore, but I would go every week and go to the eShop and then follow all the games that I thought looked cool. And then what I would do is then go to my list and scroll through and find if any are on sale. Because there's no good sales thing. So what I do now that works well because Steam is a better store for this is that I literally wish list anything that I think looks cool. And then you can sort your list by price. And so I could literally go right now, sort my list reverse by price, see if anything's on sale, and then I can like literally buy a few. If anything's under $2, I immediately buy it, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if it's like a $10 game that goes under $2, like I'm like, all right, done, already buying it. Like I can go right now and I'll look through and then I'll buy like a handful of games. And it's insane. But that's how I go through now my indie stuff. It's a sickness. It's crazy. Should I talk about my first game at the top of the list that I was playing a little bit this week? And it's one of those that it is absolutely going to be on a future episode. It's called Ouros or Ouros, Ouros. This game on Steam works better. I think it works better with touchscreen, which I have on my Steam Deck. And essentially, this is a game where it is very, very, very relaxing and chill. This is after I got done playing UFO 50, get my ass beat in a bunch of different games. I'm like, all right, dude, I already told you I'm going to play this game. And essentially, all you have, and this is like one of those mind-bending puzzle games, but it's very, very chill and very, very easy to do. It's so chill that even if you get stuck, you can click a little button and it'll kind of give you a hint. Like it is a fun game. So essentially, there's like some chill music going on. You see these lights going, and this thing goes in a circle. And all you have to do is line up the dots so that a line goes through 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes ding, 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 and then it goes on to the next level. And then what it does is it creates little patterns, and then you got to create it. Maybe you'll create like a helix, and it'll go through. And then as you go through worlds and levels, it becomes a little more complex to where they'll create extra dots that you have to draw the path through. You have to go through and like maybe it's 1, 3, 4, 2, and then you got to figure out how to get the thing to go the correct way because it keeps going in one loop. And then all of a sudden you realize you can twist it and do all these extra things that make it look almost 3D. It'll create obstacles you have to go around. But it's just such a relaxing, chill game. It's a couple bucks. And this is the stuff that where, like, if you saw a picture of that game, you'd be like, oh, it's a line game. But once you play it, it's like, okay, this is my life now.
I was looking at some of the screenshots when you were telling me about it. You know what it makes me think of is 90s like house music videos or early 2000s. I don't know. It's got that weird
screensaver Winamp.
Yeah, it just has like this. I was like seeing it and I was just like imagining like real McCoy. It's like not another dream. I was like, what is this? But yeah, it has a vibe. As the kids would say, it has a vibe.
It has a vibe. And the thing is that every once in a while, I just need a game to decompress with. And, honestly, Vampire Survivors is one where you just go through.
It really is.
Everything. And there's stuff going on the screen. This one is more like, because I enjoy playing a Picross game, where you're sitting there and doing the numbers and you just like etch them out. Like Mario's Picross on Super Nintendo and Game Boy is one that I grew up playing the ROMs up because I didn't own the games back in the day. But like, I have a Konami Picross on my phone that I'll literally play every time I'm traveling to conventions. I'll just like play Konami Picross. This is like that, where it's like just a chill thing that you just play at your own leisure and enjoy it. And it's made by like one guy. It's such a
cool,
fun game.
It's a cheap game too, folks. It's not that much.
Couple bucks. So, do you want to talk about a cheap game now that isn't necessarily that good? And it's obscure. It's so obscure that I would know about it, that you would know about it, but normal gamers probably hadn't played this in the arcades back in the day, because it's a remake of a classic arcade beat.
Yeah, it was, and first I want to say it was kind of interesting because it was done by, this remake was done by Forever Entertainment. And Forever Entertainment's kind of like a mixed bag for me. Like, I like some of their stuff, but there's some stuff I don't really care for. I mean, that like they did like the remake the Panzer Dragoon, which was really, really good. I enjoyed that. But this is a Night Slasher, and it's a remake. And I remember when you told me about it, you were like, I heard it wasn't that good though. And I'm like, yeah, but I was on Switch and it was one of those like late nights. I got home from work. I'm looking at the eShop and I see it was on sale for like $5. And I'm like, well, I heard it wasn't good, but that's only $5. Now, before I get into it, there was something that scared the shit out of me that I want to mention.
Well, you should think about like the game itself, like what made it different than the beat 'em ups of the day, because this was the original Night Slashers was a late release arcade game beat 'em up. It was near the end of the beat 'em up genres. Like a lot of people never played an arcade cabinet of Night Slashers. They played it on main.
That's what I did. Yeah,
exactly. And the cool thing was like you're fighting tons and tons of like zombies and stuff, which was cool. It had this horror aesthetic, and then like one of the main characters, I remember he had like flowing blonde locks and he had metal arms. Like, and I was like, what the heck? So like the characters, you know, they were unique and distinct to the game. They weren't based off of the franchise, but they were like cool enough that they were unique. Like a mix between like a Streets of Rage combined with Ninja Crusaders, or not? Yeah, Ninja Crusaders. I think is the Ninja Warriors. My bad. Yeah, Ninja Warriors, where you have like the robot ninjas, but then you know what I mean? Like they just took stuff that they thought was cool, and then they released a late '90s beat 'em up.
Yeah, it's a very unique game, and it has like a really cool art style, like you mentioned. So I, start playing the remake, and I was just like, man, this doesn't look good. Like, and it was slow because see, this is what I was going to mention earlier. What freaked me out is when I played the remake, I immediately like closed it, and I was like, I need to play the original Night Slasher, which is also on Switch from Johnny Turbo Presents Night Slasher.
Johnny Turbo.
Johnny Turbo.
Oh my.
But yeah, it was that, because at first it freaked me out because I was like looking through my my little collection. I'm looking for Night Slasher, and I'm like, where the fuck is it? And I was like, maybe it's Arcade Archives. I'm looking. I'm like, no. I'm like, and I kept just seeing the remake there, and it was like burning an image in my head. I'm like, did they get rid of my original Night Slash? I was like freaking out for a second, but no, it was Johnny Turbo Presents, and I had to go and play that just to kind of like clear my palate after playing the remake, and to make sure that it wasn't just my eyes playing tricks on me. But I really think it's the art style that makes it seem slower, because it's got like this like almost like they were trying to do like a comic, like Archie comic aesthetic to it. I mean, honestly, it felt like I was playing Archer, like the show Archer. Like the way they move and the way the animation is, that's what the Night Slash remake.
So they wanted to like remake it, kind of like what they did with Wonder Boy, but the artist was more like an Archer artist. They didn't use enough animations. Is what you're
saying. It was just it's just like a weird chop. I mean, the music was good. They added some cutscenes. There was also like a little funny thing that was like said like now loading, and it would be like tips. And then it would say, who reads these anyway? And at first that was funny, but I think that's the only loading screen that it had. So it's just like the jokes just...
Every time.
Yeah, every time. It was just like...
The interesting thing is because these are modern games, like this game, G.I. Joe that we talked about last episode, it'll be interesting to see if any feedback goes into fixing any qualms and any problems that we have. With indie games, because it's usually made by a small team, you don't typically see a lot of major overhauls, but because like they'll just move on to the next game. But you never know. So if there ever is one, definitely let us know in comments. Like it's like, hey, Night Slashers, they fixed animation, they added 2 more frames, and now the game plays great. Like if that happens, let us know, because I will absolutely dig it. Because I didn't even download it, didn't buy it, because I'm like, I'm going to wait. And I mean, you think about it, we're in a beat 'em up renaissance right now.
We really are,
because we got Ninja Turtles. That started with the madness, and then now you got Toxic Crusaders, which RetroWare's doing, which is the Angry Video Game Nerd guys. They got that. You got the Streets of Rage 4, which was excellent. And then now you also have there's an Ash versus Evil Dead and Halloween double pack that's going to be on Switch, which I had no clue about. And then this was announced this week. Terrifier, the Artcade, which Terrifier is a slasher film, and I mean, I went and saw part 3 at the theater, which was freaking ridiculously gory, so cool. I think I've been sending people pictures of clowns dancing, because there was that. It had its own previews at the movie. That's like I've not been to a film or to see a movie at the theater that they had only like clown previews, and it was like there was like this metal band, this guy like dressed with clown makeup, just singing a dredgy metal song. And then it moves to these old school clowns dancing. And then it goes to like old school horror trailers, not like new ones, like clown horror or like it, but in India. A trailer. Like so it was wild. And then like it went to Terrifier 3. And apparently that movie has taken over or will take over Joker 2, which had hundreds of millions of dollars, whereas I think Terrifier 3 was like $1 million.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And it's like eventually, because I have a horror podcast called the Phobos Militia that I've done years ago, and every once in a while we'll pop back out and we'll talk about. We did the Terrifier first 2 movies. I might have to do part 3, especially since Tom Savini did an intro for the Phobos Militia, and he's in the freaking movie. I was like, oh my God, Savini's in here. Hell yeah. So that's indie style. And now there's a beat 'em up. And I guarantee you, because that's made by like WayForward, I guarantee you it's going to crush something like Night Slashers, where they just didn't quite tune it in enough to make it, memorable. Which is sad because the original's great.
WayForward is like, they have it down to a science with their beat 'em ups, like River City Girls, and all those games have been so much fun.
Well, and they're not quite indie, but they're indie. Like that's the thing too, is that like they started super indie, but like because Limited Run Games, was publishing their stuff, they got out there a little bit further, and then everybody realized what they're making is excellent, and so it just started to get crazier and crazier. And yeah, everything WayForward does is pretty spot on. Final game? Finalist game I've been playing. There's one. And now the question is then, did you actually have time to play this game?
I haven't.
Oh my gosh. So if you get to this game, it will steal your soul. So the game that we're talking about, I had alluded to a game that Premium has released, but this game is a brand new game. It's called Quest Master. I had randomly stumbled upon it a couple weeks ago. I bought a copy of the game. I think it's like $20 maybe. But this is 16-bit Legend of Zelda Maker. It plays like, Link to the Past, Minish Cap. There's a little bit of a jump in there that reminds me of Minish Cap. But the interesting thing is that this game, and what's different is, so like Super Dungeon Maker doesn't have a pixel state. It's more like modern looking, beautiful graphics, and you create dungeons. In this game, you make quests, and the final form hasn't been unveiled. They literally, since I bought the game a few weeks back, they've released 2 more updates. One of them, you get a sailcloth that you can float through the air, and there's a wind dungeon. Now they released a water dungeon that has a bunch of other stuff, including different switches and unique stuff that it does. But there's also the regular Legend of Zelda tropes already in it. Multiple layered dungeons, craziness.
Does it have online multiplayer? Is it multiplayer?
It is co-op.
Oh, wow.
There's even dungeons where you can sort it, and you can play with 2, 3, 4 people to get through the dungeon. You can't even play it with one person, and somebody designed it for multiple player, like 4 swords or something. But what's crazy though is that, and this is what I love about indie games. So they had a Discord set up, and I went over to the Quest Master Discord, and I just messaged the creator. And while I'm playing the game, I'm chatting with the creator of the game. And I'm like,
it's surreal.
It was crazy. And I was like, well, have you thought about this? Because there's one thing that they said, they're already going to have an overworld maker.
Oh, wow.
And so Super Dungeon Maker is just dungeons. You go to this board and you do dungeons. You do the same thing in Questmaster. There's a bulletin board. You literally go there and then there's tabs. You do popular games, newest games, curated games by the developer, which is awesome, by the way. And so there's multiple categories, and then you can star them and whatever. But he's creating an overworld. And my thought was, I was like, what if? And he was already thinking of this, which is crazy. The developer is awesome. I was like, what if you create a dungeon and it does this thing that a game called Mega Man Maker does. If you've played, have you heard of Mega Man Maker?
No, but I'm intrigued. I love Mega Man.
Exactly. So there's a whole community where you can make Mega Man levels and everything. It's just as crazy as Questmaster, but Mega Man. But there's a Wily's Castle mode in that where you go through the Wily's Castle, and every dot, it goes to a random level in the server.
Oh,
and then and so I was like, what if in Questmaster you do an overworld and you go to this dungeon and it can pull from a random list? Say I curated and I go, I want hard levels in this one. And it pulls from a random dungeon. You have like a and he's like, I'm already thinking of that, and it's already working. And I'm like, oh my god, because like I could curate and make my own Legend of Zelda game now with this.
Yeah.
Or I'm not a great level maker. I could make the cool overworld though, and then all of a sudden now it's like, all right, here's my randomizer world.
You know what we could also do too? This is just me shooting some ideas. We could always like have our community create some levels for them to make, and then we can play them and talk about them on the show.
And we can play them cooperatively on your stream.
Yeah, we could do that.
Like, I would 100% do that.
Cool.
Like there are, and 100% from the community, let us know if there are any online or cooperative games you want us to play, because we'll share in them on Xander's channel. Like 100%. Like I am down. No, because like this game is infinite Zelda, and the thing is like the town that you start in too has little side quests and craziness. Like there's this like little game where you can get like a little lucky charm thing. You get a key and you can unlock a chest, and if you get nothing, you have to wait like 30 in-game minutes and you can go back and do another one. I haven't even found anything yet. There are charms. So in Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, you get these little accessories, right? This game already has these charms that you get that do the same thing. And this game came out before Echoes of Wisdom was announced. Like it's already doing the charm thing. And so like the lucky thing, I think, gets you a charm. There's also like this little character that pops up randomly every once in a while, and it'll give you like a little quest. I haven't even came across the character yet, and I've put in hours in this game, and he has not randomly popped up yet. There's like eggs that hatch. There's a fishing mode that I haven't even unlocked, which he may not have implemented yet, the developer. But there's like a whole fishing mode. Like, everything that you love about Zelda is in this game. And it is retro style. Because like Super Dungeon Maker, you play as a chicken, or they added a knight now. This one, they're like little anime looking characters. I think one's like a rabbit or something. Like it's just like and there's a girl and a boy. And I think it might only be 3 players, but it might be 4. I think I might have misspoken. It's only 3 right now. But either way, there is definitely co-op. My assumption is it's online co-op, but this game is so polished, so fun. And the thing is, the controls feel like Super Nintendo controls. Like you're talking, the Night Slashers fell off. This feels on. This is like perfect feeling. As soon as, and how I came across it is, I was playing a game called Legend of Zelda Dungeons of Infinity.
Oh, wow.
And the Dungeons of Infinity is a roguelike Legend of Zelda that they made in Game Maker Studio, but it's Zelda Link to the Past, Infinite. And you just got to fight Aghanim. But I was watching videos. I was playing the shit out of it. I was doing this like a month ago, and it's so fun. The controls are pretty good. You just can't do the poke or the spin because it would break the game. Then somehow I came across this within that community. I came across this game, and this game though is a masterpiece. It is so cool. If I could release the physical for premium, that's a no brainer. But it's not even close to. It's still being worked on, so it's not even in the realm of talking about porting to Switch yet. This is only on Steam right now. It's an early access type deal, but in reality, you get to play along as they unveil new things.
That's really cool. I like it.
If there's any game that we talked about that has the potential to be on the radar of everybody's gonna play it, this might be it, because we need a Zelda maker. But this is everything. When it had the overworld maker, that just blew my mind.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so you're gonna have to play it, and then we're gonna lose you. 'Cause it's like you're talking about. Like I played it straight for days. Like
you're gonna start episode 3, and it's just gonna be you like, okay, guys. So Xander played Questmaker, and I haven't heard from him.
Still there.
It's like I haven't heard from him in quite some time.
Dude, if we didn't have like jobs and stuff like this, that would be my life now. And I would just be the quest master at this point.
Gosh, could you imagine if you had those kind of games growing up? Good God. I would never leave. I would be always in my room. This is like,
well, isn't that like the crazy thing is it's like when you're growing up, you have all the time, and we had none of the games, none of the stuff, and now that we get older, media, everything, we have all of the things. Like we literally with streaming and stuff can watch anything ever. We can play with emulation, everything. We play anything ever.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get indie games now. I mean, 40 a day, but like through the Steam library, it's so easy to do, and they're affordable that we can literally play games forever. Like we probably both have so many video games that we could not play the same game twice until we're 150.
Oh yeah, it's nuts.
Mm-hmm. And so it is insane. Then you get a game like this that just goes on forever. It's the same thing when I mentioned a robot named Fight. Like that's Infinite Super Metroid. You just play it forever. It's so good and it's great. And it's like I just gotta like mentally say, all right, I'm going to move on from this game now, so I can play something else.
That's always my fear. That's why I never really got into MMOs too much. Because that's always my fear that I would like get that one game. Because I know people, and trust me, there's nothing wrong with it. But I know people who just play one game and that's all they play. And that makes them happy. But I was like, man, I just couldn't do it. It would be like me eating the same meal every day. It's just like after a while I get burnt out and I'm like, I want to do something else. So yeah, that's always kind of a fear that I would start playing it and like, oh, I'm not going to play anything else. And I'm going to miss out on like a bunch of cool shit. So I'm playing shit.
And that's where Indie Credible comes in, and Indie Gaming Gems is it forces me at least to play other stuff. And to continue to play new stuff. My backlog gets longer and longer. But also like when I'm creating content on it, or at least playing it so I can actually talk about it on the podcast or on an episode, I got to put a little more time in than 15 minutes, which is nice because I have a bad habit of stuff that I think it's cool. And I'll like play for a little bit. Okay, cool. Move on to the next thing because I'm finding so many games. Whereas when I do it for an episode or we're going to talk about the podcast, I'm giving it more time. And then I get more enjoyment, which is great.
Yeah, I do that really bad with emulation. Like when you have like a Raspberry Pi that has like all the consoles, it goes back to it harkens back to when we were kids and we were just flipping channels. Or if you're on Netflix and you're just going through the menu, And
this thing right here, man. This analog pocket is like everything ever on here, and I just sit there and I find myself not playing games as much.
Yeah, you're like playing it a little bit. You might see the intro and you're like, oh, okay, that was enough. Then like after the intro, you go to another game. You're like, oh, you get to this little spot and you're like, man, fuck this game. I'll go to another one.
Man. And so like, I know years back I started this and I've been doing it religiously. I have a backlog list in Excel spreadsheet on Google Docs. And I actually document every game that I have in my backlog that I've been playing, and then I log it when I beat it. And then I say if I was blown away and I give it a rating and all this stuff. And then I use that to create my top 10 on my blog. I've been doing that for years. This year I've beaten the most games, I think, ever. And it's like, normally I'm barely getting to like 10 beating, not like playing, but beating. I think I'm like 20-ish or something this year. But I also, like when I was moving cross country, I was playing Elden Ring, and then I played Fez, and I played games that were on my backlog that I hadn't beaten. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to beat Fez. I'm going to finally beat Ninja Turtles. I hadn't beaten the Turtles, beat them up. So I'm like, I'm going to beat that game.
Yeah.
And so like, I have some easy ones because that one's an easy one to beat. But there's other ones that like, I wouldn't have beaten Elden Ring if I hadn't of been walking it, and documenting. And so it's an interesting way to do it, but like then we have stuff like this where it's like, come on, the Incredible, and like, all right, so are we gonna play it to beat it, or are we just gonna play talk about it? Like, what do we do? And like, a Quest Master, I'm literally go through and I beat levels, and some levels take 10 minutes that people make. One of them took me an hour to beat a dungeon, and it was fucking awesome.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those games, like, especially if like, say I play it and I really enjoy it too. I feel like there's no problem with it being a reoccurring game in the podcast. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if the community's thriving on it. Like if folks are listening and they're making levels they want us to play, and and like you said, it's always updating, so there's always going to be something. So I mean,
jump in.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'll make a damn Quest Master in the Discord. I'll make a Quest Master freaking channel, and people can, if people want us to. The thing is, and I did this for a while. This is Super Mario Maker 2. Just like Super Mario Maker 2, where I don't like to make the levels in these makers. I like to play people's levels because they're much more talented than me. It's also why I can publish the games physically. I don't make the games because there's many more developers that are more talented than me, and I would love to play their stuff. So to me, Quest Master is literally Incredible, but like just this one game. Like I play this one game here forever, and then I'm gonna do the same with indie games. And it's why we love when people share stuff. So if you share levels of this, you share games you want us to play. Like there will be games that the community is like, all right, let's talk about this game.
Indeed.
Yeah, we had On the Horizon now. Talk about games that I have come across throughout the week. And the first one in the list I actually played yesterday. Because a lot of these, like I find them, I'll put them in the list. These are like the highlights. I found more than 5. I always put like 5. This first one's called Pinball Spire.
This is up my alley.
Have you played Yoku's Island Express on the Switch?
Yes.
Okay, so I've played this. This is a pixelated version of Yoku. It's pixelated. It has like a unique aspect of some of the as you're playing, you're hitting the pinball, right? It reminds me a lot of like a little bit of a mix of pinball on the NES combined with like the TurboGrafx 16 Alien Crush and Devil's Crush, which is freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. But like go to the second or third table, there's like you got to hit all these letters, and then it unlocks this thing in the middle, and I'm like, oh cool, there's like this may let me go to the next level. I was thinking that. Hit the little icon, and it's like, all right, you have an ability. So it's literally a Metroidvania. Like you get new gated progression Metroidvania style. And so what this first ability did is it allows me to hit the trigger button for a limited amount of time, kind of like Zelda, which you can use the sword form in the game for a limited amount of time. It slows it down. It shows you where the ball is going to go. And so if I need to do a spot, because there'd be a spot in the middle to go to the next board, I slowed it down, got the spot, went, and it shoots right up. Perfect.
That's cool. I love that.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I probably played it for, like an hour or so. I hadn't played a ton of it, but I did it on purpose so I could highlight it, because like when I added this to my Steam Deck, it was like, all right, this might be my life for a little bit. Because like if I start playing it, and I'm probably going to play it tonight after we get done recording, I'm probably going to play a little bit of Pinball Spire because I was thinking about it. It might be the next one I need to play.
But the more you talk about it, you're more like, I could be playing that instead of doing this.
It's like playing some Pinball Spire right now. But it looks cool, man, and this is something that we need to cover like in long form.
It's up my alley.
If it sucks,
I love like Kirby Pinball Quest on the NES, Protobot. So, I like a lot of those pinball games. So,
and to put things into perspective, these games that are on the horizon, to show you about where it's going to fall in Indie Gaming Gems, because this will be on an episode for sure. We're in the first couple episodes of Indie Gaming Gems at the time of this airing right now. I want to say that the Pinball Spire will be episode 21 or 22. That's a half a year. That's how far out I already am for my games.
Oh my lord, that's great.
To put things into perspective, it's going to be a long time before I get to the Pinball Spire on Indie Gaming Gens, which means I have plenty of time to play the shit out of this game.
Oh yeah,
I only get like less than a minute to talk about every game too. That's the one thing. Whereas now we got long form content. That's what I love about podcasting is we got long form content. We could talk a little bit about it. But I think we should talk about the next game. And I think you should look it up so you can do a little bit of a react to Bloomtown, A Different Story. What I wrote down is this is a mix of Stranger Things with Persona, but it has a retro aesthetic. Now this game has gotten 10 out of 10s from everyone, 8 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s. It looks like a Earthbound style graphics. I mean, this is interesting.
It has. You know what it makes you think of? It makes you think of, like you said, Earthbound, but also makes you think of A Boy and His Blob.
Ooh,
it kind of
does have graphics.
It's almost like a Boy and His Blob meets Scooby Doo. That's what it kind of looks like, which is really cool. So it's turn-based, right?
Exactly. It is a turn-based RPG. It has pixel graphics. It does the Persona thing where you come across enemies and then you can have them fight on your side. It's almost a little too much Persona, unfortunately. Like it almost wears it on its nose and does the Stranger Things thing real hard. So, I mean, now the thing is there such thing as too much inspiration? I don't know. It might be just right because it's pixel graphics. And there is a free demo. You can get it. You can play a demo if this game is interested for the listeners. You can check out this game, and it just looks so freaking cool. And these are the type of things that I like randomly come across. I'm like, all right, so here's a badass looking RPG that has inspirations and all the retro stuff that I love, and it's pixel graphics and everything, dude. Like, isn't it crazy? Like, there's.
Yeah, it definitely has its own like flavor to it. Now, this next game that you were talking about, Realm of Ink.
Oh my god,
dude, this game looks awesome.
And this goes right into what we were talking about. Is like indie games doesn't necessarily mean retro. This game looks so gorgeous. We had alluded to a game. We alluded to Hades. This has a Hades feel to me.
Oh yeah.
It has it's a action roguelike game. It has 2D aesthetics, but like it looks like paintings when you're playing the game.
Yeah.
And like all the character art when it's large looks like beautifully drawn. It has that isometric style, you know, like it looks isometric in the screenshots, but it actually is free roaming just like Hades and has the roguelike. So
yeah,
like,
it's got that top down kind of flavor, Diablo kind of flavor to it. That's cool.
Exactly. And there's a whole tree system of unlockables. And like this is the stuff that I like come across. You know, I had no clue this was coming out. I just came across it and I'm like, all right, this game looks freaking amazing. And like, and the thing is like these first three, I had no clue that they were coming out. The next two I actually knew about. So
yeah.
Easy. So but yeah, like Realm of Ink like looks really cool. Again, this might be in the realm of something that might, you know, become extremely popular, especially if like it gets picked up by a physical publisher.
Oh yeah,
it'd be something that we it could be another Hades.
I could see a lot of people digging this game.
Yeah, because the thing is that like it gets interesting when you got to be the first to be in the right place. You have to be the first to do it. You have to be the first to catch fire with it. And like Hades was like that perfect amalgam of it. Now, Realm of Ink is great. Is it good to the point where it's gonna pop and be that?
Yeah, kind of like Ninja Turtles, Splinter's Fate. Fun game. I mean, I played it. I had fun. It is definitely like a Hades inspired TMNT game. But it's not like, it didn't change my life or anything. It was just fun, you know? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know it was called Splinters.
Yeah, Splinter's Fate.
Wow, yeah, I didn't even know the name, but I just knew it was the roguelike Turtles game. Like I had played it.
It is fun. It
It's
is.
fun as hell.
Mhm.
I remember, didn't they do like it was like Turtles had the thing where they had like a Devil May Cry style game back in the day too when that was popular.
Oh, they had that game put up by Platinum. Platinum Games made that
Yes.
TMNT game, and I never played it, but I heard it was not that great.
It was not the best one that they had released. Because like I remember
Which sucks because Transformers one was actually pretty decent.
and so I have the Transformers. I never played it, and then I got the Turtles when I played that one. And I was, these are okay because like the first games that Platinum did, like the Band and Stats, they were excellent, and then they just started to use the formula over and over again. And so
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Realm of Ink doesn't fall into that, and that this
Yeah.
genre is still fresh. Is the key. So the next one that I have on the list is one that I've been tracking for a long time. One of my team members on Premium actually knew the developer. So I was playing it. I don't know. We don't have a contract with it. Like we're not signing. There's none of that. But this is Berserk Boy. I don't know if you've
I
heard
love.
played this one.
Yeah, I've streamed Berserk Boy a couple of times.
Heck
It's
yeah.
good. It is. I dare I say that this is what we wanted from Mighty Number 9.
Yes.
I'll say it.
To me, like Berserk Boy is like Mega Man ZX style era Mega Man, which is what we wanted from Mighty Number 9. Is we wanted it to be a Mega Man Zero, Mega Man ZX style game with new stuff. And it has like this great art for a
It
Berserk
really
Boy.
does.
The art is
It's
awesome.
the art made me think of another game that I really enjoyed, like the Monster Boy series. Like it kind of has that, very like it feels like it was a Saturday morning cartoon vibe, like the art style. Like it's that crisp. It looks really really cool.
I'm sure you've played Luminous Avenger.
Yeah,
Well, like that style game too. Like, but like these ones are more. This one's more like cartoony.
yeah,
But it's so good. And, whether Prelude's in it or not, this is still an excellent game. I wanted to just highlight it because, like, there was a couple games that popped up this week, including Berserk Boy, that, like got a little more highlights on social media and stuff that I saw pop up.
and the
All right,
developer.
well,
I would say the developers are like super cool. Like I've had conversations on Twitter about Castlevania with them. So, like, yeah, you're cool.
okay, that's a good news. It's a
Oh
good
yeah.
news.
The great
Yeah,
game too. It was one of those games that I remember when it was in early access. I knew a couple of people that were playing it, and they're like, "Oh, Xander, you got to play Berserk Boy." And it came out on Steam, and I was like, "I want to play it," but it wasn't until it came out recently on Switch. When it came out on Switch, I'm like, "All right, I got to get it." And yeah, it's definitely
Nice.
one of my top games of 2024 for sure.
really.
Had retro style. Like I love like the fact that it's like you said, it's got the Mega Man X kind of aesthetic to it, but it also made me think of another indie game that was kind of like a Sonic spiritual successor to Freedom Fighters. Remember that?
Interesting. Is it Freedom Fighters or is it because there was
Freedom-
'cause there's part
Freedom
one and
Planet.
part two, Freedom Planet one.
That's
and
what it was.
two.
Freedom Planet. That was a really good game, and that's what Berserk Boy definitely has some of that inspiration to it. It's Mega Man like, but it's not trying to be Mega Man. It's inspired by Mega Man.
Exactly, and I think it's inspired in all the right ways.
Yeah,
It does exactly what we want it to do, and that's why I'd like this is the stuff like on the horizon. Like I want to highlight some games like this because now if this gets like a physical or announce the physical, like you may not make the book, but I'm still going to talk about it in an episode because it needs to
Oh,
be
yeah.
talked about more. And that's the other piece is like even if a game is talked about online like a UFO 50 where we see a bunch of YouTube channels, it's still an indie game. It's still not Mario yet. It's not in
Yeah.
everybody's house. So I mean,
people
still
still
can't
need
talk
to
about
hear it.
exactly.
Yeah,
So, and this fifth game here is kind of in that realm. I knew about it from an old Kickstarter. But it's called Victory Heat Rally, and it's in a different genre than normal too, because I don't normally talk a lot about racing games. But this game right here reminds me of the classic Mario Kart and rally games on the Neo Geo in all the right ways. Horizon Chase Turbo style, but this one is more like a kart racer back in the day style. And if you're well versed in the Super Famicom, there were a handful of games that were released only for the Super Famicom in Japan that had this type of aesthetic. And Victory Heat Rally is like in that realm. It is fast-paced, fun, controls, good drifts, and it just is an addictive game that makes me keep playing it over and over again.
It makes you think of, I wish I could remember the name of it. It was on the GBA, but it was from Konami. Konami had like a kart racing game, and it had like this kind of style to it, and it had like Konami characters. I think it was during the Game Boy Advance, so it definitely had like, I think it had like Pyramid Head and like Belmonts of some sorts, but this is really cool.
Correct. It might just be called Konami Kart Racers.
Yeah. It might be something that's, something like that. Cool. But this is really cool. I really like the, it makes me think of like a high definition, like almost like a Sega Saturn game, to be honest. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's like there's a lot of games in this realm. Like my favorites are on the Neo Geo. These type of rally games, thrash rallies and stuff like that are my favorites. And this is right up that realm. And it's like, I'm not necessarily a racing gamer. I don't have a racing wheel at the house. I don't play that stuff. But I do absolutely love. And by the way, if you do this, it pops up.
Yeah, I noticed that. I would do like the thumbs down, or do like a thumbs down thing.
But yeah, like but like these type of games when they're more arcadey, I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. I will play Outrun all day, but I'm not big in the Gran Turismo. Like, I like Ridge Racer, I like Forza, like I like those games because they're just fun racing games. Like, I don't want to specialize in what muffler I want to use. Like, that doesn't interest me.
I just remember original PS1 playing Gran Turismo 1 and 2 and like having to get my driver's license. Like, it was not fun.
You're like, nah, never mind.
Yeah, that's where I like the Horizon Chase Turbos of the world, where it's just high speed, fast racing. I mean, Mario Kart 8 probably has it dialed in perfectly for an arcadey style game.
Oh yeah,
that game, and then Sonic Racing Transformed are two like that just had right. This is in that realm of just a fun arcadey racing.
And it looks like it has a vinyl release, a soundtrack vinyl release. It looks pretty nice. That's nice.
You like vinyls? Yeah, it's a wild thing. But that hits the On the Horizons, and I know as you remember that we have an online document, you'll probably add some stuff to it in the future too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this document is what I'll mess around with throughout the week and just toss ideas and thoughts as I'm finding stuff for the future channel and episode content, and then I'm like, all right, this game needs to be talked about on the podcast.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy, dude. So I think that hits the main part of the episode here. We don't have to do 17 hours every week.
Oh no, I think this wraps up everything and get us ready for episode 3. And I need to check out Questmaker. That needs to be on my my list. Maybe we can talk about
and Pinball Spire.
Oh yeah, Pinball Spire
are two that I'm gonna play. I bump up and power on Quest Master. You said Maker, but Master, Quest Master every a couple times a week. I'm playing it. And because I've been playing Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, I was going to that, but now that is complete for me, I am absolutely jumping back into Quest Master. Like,
it's like you left just to bring your tolerance down a little bit. Your tolerance was getting too high, so you had to take a tolerance break, and now you're going back in.
It's like jump back over to Ouros a little bit and play a little chill game, and play a little Pinball Spire in the world, whatever. And then there'll be the infinite games that just draw me in because freaking wild stuff. I every once in a while, and I've been doing this for the last 20 years, is I'll just throw on Doom. And I'll play a few levels of Doom. And they just did the whole updates to the games, and it's freaking infinite now. And you can do mods on it and everything. It's so good. And you can play it online, and my neighbors want to freaking play Doom, and I'm like, okay. So we're playing Doom online, like it's freaking crazy. It's infinite, dude.
So before we close the episode, before we leave, again, we have a Discord. Where can they find that, Jeff?
On Discord. And we will have a link to it in the show notes here. And you'll be able to click on the link. We'll have an invite that never goes away, because you have to have an invite link for the Discord. If you type in Hagen's Alley Books, you'll find it, but it'll be easier for you to follow the link, for sure.
Indeed. And we also have the Facebook as well, the community on Facebook.
And that one is Indie Gaming Gems, just like the channel verbiage is Indie Gaming Gems, because I wanted to keep it, the channel general, but also the group general, because I found out already that there are things being linked in other groups from that group already. So, like, they're like, oh my God, one guy hit me up, he's a listener of Video Game Bullshit. He's like, dude, my group just linked yours. He's like, that's so crazy. And it's like, the group's been around for less than a week, and they're already started. So it's like, it's going to be the place that we're going to talk about indie stuff that we're playing about. I'm probably going to chat about Pinball Spire just to get people excited. And Questmaster. We need to probably post like links to both of these. But actually, I think I already posted a link to Questmaster.
You did, yeah.
But I need to post about Pinball Spire. But the one of the community members has been posting videos. I gotta figure out how to do the video thing on there, because I think that is way cooler than doing just a link to the store page. Like, do a video and then link to the store page.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure.
It immediately gets you like, oh my God, what the heck is this? Like the one ninja game that popped up, and I'm like, what is that?
I might play this.
Yeah, I'll probably add it to the On the Horizon for next week, just so we can chat about it in episode here. Yeah, so we talked about our interests. So for episode 3, we're going to talk about our favorite indie games of all time.
Yeah,
and that's
I'm going to be on. Yeah, I almost had to do a little bit of homework on that one, because it's kind of a blur. It's kind of a blur.
Yes.
I guess there's a lot of them I like, but
fortunately for me, I kept a backlog of games for the last almost 10 years. So I'm just going to go back and pick out a few. But I mean, obviously, I'm going to talk some Super Meat Boy stories though, because that's an easy one for sure. But yeah, you gotta go to the best of all time though. That's interesting.
But I mean, like, some of these indie games do they carry the same. I would argue they carry the same weight as some of the NES classics I grew up with. Like some of them are that good. Like, sometimes I'm like, do I want to play Castlevania 3 or do I want to play a little bit of Infernax? It's like, I'll play some Infernax. That's a really good Castlevania style game. But yeah,
and just like Ninja Gaiden Ninja Gaiden, I call it Infernax.
Oh yeah.
But that's the thing though with indie games, is we can give it our own spin. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Like Ouros might be Ouros. We're talking about who's to say? Like, I love making it your own, and I actually haven't beaten that game, so I like, that's another one that I had the physical of it. It was released, I think, with the double pack, wasn't it, or was it not? Maybe I'm thinking of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have it on Switch physically, because that was when my sickness took hold. I have everything. I probably have 2,000 games physically for Switch.
Yeah.
And
it's an easy thing to do.
I mean, I literally created the book series, The Switch Collector, and I stopped at year 3 right now, because I'm doing it still, but it's taking me years to do just year 3, because the Switch library has grown exponentially every year to the point where it's
it's insane
games. And I moved over to indie stuff just because of premium, and that's why I did the indie stuff, is because and it's allowed me to play way more. So, and that's the thing. In the end, we love all this stuff. We like to talk about all this stuff, but it's very important to play and support indie game developers. The best part about doing the content, chatting with Xander over here, is that we get to play these games. I was playing Pinball Spire, and I'm going to play it again today. As we get to play this stuff, and we don't plan it. So, absolutely play.
Indeed. So, always, guys, happy gaming, and we'll be jumping on the next episode.